So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're pretty pressed for time, so we'll cut off a lot of the things we planned to start with. The theme for this session is the making of an African independent, what it takes to succeed in a competitive landscape. The organizers have done such a fantastic job in putting together an array of experts, people that have lived through this journey. Each and every one of them will have about 2 minutes as an introductory pitch to talk about their journey, what the challenges are, and based on their responses, we'll take it off from there. But just as a mark of introduction, we have a very good array mix of panelists here. We've got Panero, who I called an international independent operating across multiple countries in Africa. We've got Sapetro, that ventured straight into deep water as a non-operator. We've got Oando, that got a story from the downstream to non-operating, marginal field operator, and now operator. We've got Petralon. Petralon is same thing from non-operator to now operating, but at the same time, Aonsi doubles as the chairman of Nigeria Stock Exchange, and is equally the chairman of one of the biggest EPC service company, formerly Saipem, now known as Macondi. And then next to me is Edson from Angola, working across 14 multiple blocks, and with equity production of about 25,000 barrels. So without taking much of your time, let me kick this started by inviting John. Just give us an opening pitch about Panero, your journey, what the motivation was, and where you are today.
Thank you. Are we supposed to use these? I think so. No,
I don't think
too much. So I'm John Hamilton. I'm Chief Executive of Panoro Energy ASA. I'm an American, as you may be able to hear. I work in London for a Norwegian company with African assets. So a truly international company, hopefully. So Panoro, we're listed on the main stock exchange in Norway. We're seen as kind of one of the few African players on the Norwegian stock exchange. We have our partner in Gabon, BW Energy, who are also Norwegian. But between the two of us, we're kind of seen in the Norwegian sector as the African E&Ps. We have about 6,000 shareholders. We have a very good list of shareholders, big institutional investors. We've recently issued a bond, a $150 million bond in the Norwegian market, which has been useful for us in terms of managing our business. And then at the asset level, we're pure African. So we're in Gabon, where we have 3 blocks. We're in Equatorial Guinea, where we have 3 blocks, 2 as operator. We're in Tunisia, and we also have a very interesting project here in South Africa in the Karoo, looking at helium and methane gas onshore. So quite a diversified story. We've been around since 2010, so we're still reasonably new in this sector, I'd say.
Okay. So let's stop there. Sapetro.
Thank you very much, Nosa, for the introduction. For Sapetro, we're actually one of the old-timers. We were founded in 1995, so we're going to be 30 years old this year. So our journey really began with our acquisition of the deepwater block, OPL 246 in Nigeria, and our partnership with Total and Petrobras, which led to the discovery of the Apple and Egina fields, 2 giant deepwater fields that today contribute about 10% of Nigeria's gross production. And currently, our equity share of production from that is about 20,000 barrels per day. So our journey also included ventures outside of Nigeria. So actually, in parallel with our Apple and Egina development, we ventured out to Benin Republic, to offshore Mozambique, and also Guinea.
Thank you.
Ultimately, we've exited those assets to focus really on our deepwater operations in Nigeria as an active non-operator.
So we'll come back to challenges. Oando.
Thanks, Nosa. For us, Oando started way back in 1956. as SO Africa, a downstream company. But a while back, the board and the company made a strategic decision to go into the upstream. But we knew we had to build it gradually. So we went into marginal fields. We got an interest in one, and then we partnered with 2 other marginal field owners to produce their fields. From there, we acquired an interest in a deep offshore, a non-operating interest in a deep offshore, ML125. And after that, we acquired an interest, again, a non-operating interest in the 60 to 63 JV. It used to be owned by ConocoPhillips, and we paid about $1.9 billion at that point for it. And last year, we did our new acquisition. We bought ENI's 20% interest in the same 60 to 63. Now, for us, the goal has always been to become an operator. The acquisition last year gave us the operatorship that we've been seeking. Beyond that, we do not see ourselves as just an oil and gas producer. We are an energy provider. So what we got last year and what we've been managing is production of oil, gas, power, NGL, and now we have the renewable business as well. So it's a suite of products that we sell now.
Thank you. Let's hear the Petrolon story introduction.
All right. So I founded Petrolon myself in May 2014. So didn't have the privilege of working into an established organization. Started from scratch with nothing. It's Petrolon. Built it over the last 11 years. First, starting small with ambitious but realistic targets. So first farmed into a small marginal field with a small interest, and then built a bit more credibility by then acquiring non-operated interest in a much larger entity with deep offshore interests that include OML 127, which is Petro's block, and another asset, block OML 130, which gave us a net reflective interest of circa 2,500, at the time, 3,000 barrels a day of production, which allowed us to establish our own cash flows, which we then used to acquire a marginal field, which we own and operate to 100%, the Dawes Island marginal field, which we acquired in 2021 in the bid round. And we then invested in that asset, taking the asset from zero production to drilling one well successfully this year, finishing that in July this year, and going straight to commence drilling of the second well. We've had the rig on location since April, and we're spotting the next well in 2 weeks. Nosa, your company is providing services to us as we speak.
Yeah, thanks, Aunsi. So, Edson, from Samuel to ETU.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to remember 3 words. 3 letters better. 3 words is too much. ETU. We are the first and the largest Angolan independent. Happily proud to celebrate 25 years as a company. Initially as Somoil, and today Eto Energia is a company that produces more than 25,000 barrels of oil per day, present in over 25 assets within Angola. Motivation, other than making money, the other one was creating an Angolan company from Angola, by Angola, and for Angolans. That's the vision that created Somoil. And then we were chugging along, operating a couple of assets and being a non-op partner in a few other assets. And then after the COVID crisis, we changed the company, decided to rebrand, and that's where ETU was born. And more than a renaming, it was a change in vision, focus, and goals. So we turned a company that was making about 4,000 barrels of oil per day to a company that makes today the 25,000 barrels of oil per day.
Nice story.
With the goal to becoming an energy company. So we no longer wanted to be just an oil and gas company, but become an energy company.
Nice one. So one of the things that came out from the session this morning, basically, is that for Africa to succeed, Africa energy needs to be powered by Africans. And the emergence of independents like yours only fuel that, that conversation. In what way has the attempted change of the narrative of, I don't want to use the word demonization of fossil fuel over the last 4 or 5 years, in what way has it forced companies like yours to look inward and realize that the future is here? We need to own this asset. I mean, companies have been operating here for the past 80, 60 years across Africa. During that period, we've had enough time to acquire the expertise, the wherewithal, and the know-how. And suddenly, over the last 4 or 5 years, there was almost a risk of that dwindling away. So with independents like yours, let me start with Aonsi. In what way has that actually changed the vision of Petrolon in driving forward your goals towards becoming a big, true African independent?
Okay. I mean, I'll give you two simple, start with an example. I talked about acquiring a non-operated interest in a company, Prime Oil and Gas, which is now Marine Energy. And we own a 6% stake in that company, which we acquired a couple years ago. That acquisition was because a European-listed PE company decided to exit a business that had strong fundamentals and cash flows, and we bought their assets out, and within 3 years of buying, first 3 years of buying that asset, the company had paid $1.2 billion in dividends. So to answer your question, the whole demonization is an opportunity for those of us that, you know, Nigeria's largest source of foreign revenue is oil and gas. Simple. We have one of the largest gas reserves in the world. Simple. So if you're Nigerian and that's the sector you're in, the whole demonization, and we all flew here on aeroplanes and all that. So that whole, I never bought into that. And how it has affected you is having to find creative financing sources, because at the time when we did those acquisitions, you know, you get banks talking about not funding pure, oil and gas businesses and all that. So you need to find creative sources of capital. In our case, we found patient capital, because the traditional financing sources won't always be there for your projects in this space.
No, the next question is probably between Emeka and Nadeola. You talked about transitioning from non-operator to becoming an operator. Maybe you go first. You start as a non-operator, you transition to operatorship, then later you re-strategize to go back to staying as a non-operator. So, what would you like to share with us? I mean, that informs such bold transition from A to B and back to A.
That's quite interesting. I think for us, it always comes out to how we started, with our vision. We started with a Pan-African vision. So in parallel with our success in Nigeria, we discovered the Apple asset in 2000 and Egina in 2003. But in parallel with development of those fields, we ventured outside, as part of our portfolio expansion goals, starting with Benin Republic. And over that period, 2004 to 2018, we ended up being in about 5 countries, having 6 assets spread across. So I think it was kind of scaling up quite early. And what we found out was it's good to scale, but you have to balance that with the risk and your capacity, especially as a lean organization. So what we quickly found out was several misalignments. So sometimes your expectation of the subsurface is not what you expected going in. And then in terms of the timing, sometimes government requires you to meet a certain timeline, and that requires you being bold and pre-investing. So we've had situations where we invested quite a lot of money, and the subsurface did not pan out as expected.
I'll come back to you. Deola.
For us, the energy journey is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we've always been patient. We started with a non-operating field, like you said. When we bought ConocoPhillips' interest in 2014, we worked alongside ENI for 10 years before we took over operatorship last year. Our goal has always been our destiny in our own hands. We didn't want it in anybody's hand because there are certain strategic actions we believe should be taken, and we didn't want anybody to be misinterpreting our actions or our words. So it was important for us to take over operatorship. Now we're not limited to just that. Upon closing the transaction, when we closed last year, production oil was about 20,000 barrels of oil per day. Today, we've almost doubled that.
We've almost doubled that.
So for us, it's been our ability now, sitting in the driver's seat, being able to go into the community. We've not drilled the well, we're just drilling our first well since we took over, and yet we increased production. It's about going into that community, bringing indigenous solutions to indigenous problems that they couldn't deal with. And for us, that is a model we're replicating across Africa. We have interest in Angola. Okay. We have interest in Sao Tome. We have deep offshore blocks as well now. Okay. So my charge to this panel is really going to be more around indigenous companies going from onshore to offshore and partnering together to develop in that space.
Thank you. John, I'm back to you. Building an independent company in Africa is no small feat. Would you like to share with us some of the toughest challenges you face, either financial, operational, regulatory, or environmentally? And how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think it can also touch a little bit on the previous question because I think they're related. I think companies of our size are really an interesting part of the ecosystem. You have the very largest companies who only want to be operator. You have the smallest companies, of which we were one, and these companies at one point were also. We've all kind of gotten to this mid-size now, and those smaller companies, maybe they can only afford or can only have one asset, and it's typically non-operated. But we're in this interesting section now where we're, again, part of that ecosystem. We can be operator, we can be non-operator. The key there is finding the right partners, of course, I think is one of the themes that we talk about when we talk about what makes a successful E&P company is people often forget it. They all say, oh, it's access to capital, which it is. It's many other things. But having the right partners in your joint ventures is so critical. And those are lessons that we've all, I think, learned in our careers. It is hard starting. You don't have any money. You don't have any track record. The governments don't know who you are. The JV partners who are sitting there seeing you come into their block might not want you in their block. They don't know who you are, whether you have the money to make the cash calls. Finding deals, even as now larger companies, is so difficult to find the right deal at the right price and complete the deal and get the government approvals and the financing. But if you try and do that as a tiny company, it really is difficult. And the challenges we'd face are many, but you just have to, I think, go with a high level of integrity and honesty about what you're doing, trying to build those trust amongst all of those stakeholders, the financial stakeholders, the regulatory stakeholders, the JV stakeholders, and your own shareholders ultimately in your board. And ultimately, you need a little bit of luck as well. But if all of those things can converge, you can get on the ladder to become now mid-sized companies. Perhaps next year or 2 years from now we'll be on a different panel.
Nice. So I'd like Edson to give the question the same question to Bite as well.
No.
A Norwegian company and an Angola company, what were the peculiar challenges, financial, operational, regulatory, you had to deal with as a local Angola company operating within Angola?
All the above were challenges, but they also created opportunities that only Angolan companies can easily navigate and find solutions. We started as a consulting business, evolved into non-operating assets and then operating assets, and we really want to stay on the operating side and grow on the non-op side as well. So we want to do both, but the key for us is value. How do I maximize value on that specific asset? So a big focus on capacity, both technical and also financial, and making sure that you have the right partners, as well as lining up with the host governments. I know we are independents, but making sure that you share your vision and it aligns with the goals of the government makes a tremendous difference in growing the company and the results.
Thank you. So we have a good mix of panelists here. So I'm going to give each of them an opportunity, just a few minutes to talk about. I'm sure there's some people here, one of the things we'd like to take away from them, how did they succeed? What made them think? Over there you have John and Awansi. These are founders, owners, entrepreneurs, turned oil sheikhs, working and riding the dreams. You've got Adeola and Emeke, their story is different from non-operatorship to becoming operators and sitting on the board of their respective companies and driving decision-making and the goals. And right here you've got Edson, an adventurous Angola company, started from being as a consultant, from consultant to non-operatorship, now an operator, working across 25 assets, right?
Yeah, including downstream, yes.
25 assets in Angola and upping up to equity production of about 25,000 barrels. So if you look at equity production of some of the IOCs, it's probably doing much better than some, 25,000 barrels. I think that's a lot. So starting from John again, someone here wants to know, why is Panero where you are today? And if there's anybody in this audience that wants to venture into such, then what would you tell them to be? What would be the do's and don'ts?
You know, there's so many of them, and we've touched on a couple of them, and obviously we have a great team. I hopefully have some of my team members in the audience today, and I think it is about creating that team spirit within a small company, that you are determined, that you've got, to use your term about the marathon, you're not there just to quickly do a deal and hope to make a bunch of money. If you're doing that, you're not going to succeed. You need to have a long game, and you need to be quite stubborn, because you're going to get a lot thrown at you. You're going to get $20 oil thrown at you. You're going to get a cost overrun thrown at you. You're going to get a government audit thrown at you. There's so many banana skins out there, but you have to just kind of keep the focus and try and see towards the horizon rather than try and confronting the wave right in front of you. And you have to have that bit of that stubbornness, and you can't do it alone. You need your partners and your financiers and all that, but you need the team around you as well. To Edson's point, you need the technical people. It's the core of the business. These are the people that are helping you make the right decisions. And if you can, even if it's a small team, if you can create that team and that team spirit, that is the key ingredient for me.
Thank you. I hope someone in the audience is taking notes as well. Emeke?
I think from you looking at Sapetro's trajectory, it's really very important to have a very clear vision starting off. And normally what you see when you are trying to look for assets is there's always this focus, let me just win the asset. But it's not just about winning the asset. It's also not just about the subsurface excellence, if I use that word. But it's all about being able to navigate complexity and navigating that with discipline, and also being bold to learn from your mistakes. So for us, one thing that we try, and is most times any opportunity we are looking at, we really want to look at opportunity that we can finance at least the acquisition from our own money. So we look at that. So we cut our coat according to our size. And then even when we need to get into financing arrangements, we structure it in such a way that it covers the high-risk period. So mostly the exploration phase, noting that we were in deep water. So you mentioned that we actually dove quite deep. So being able to have that financial discipline. The other thing is strong corporate governance. It doesn't matter if you're a one-man or a two- or three-man company, you need to start from day one.
Thank you.
To have strong corporate governance.
I'm sure not everyone here is at the unique advantage of a Sapetro with 40,000 barrels equity to ride with. So let me take this on to Adeola. You may want to touch as well, and if you have anything about the right financial model that anyone should consider while trying to venture into this? Please feel free to add on.
For us, my view is that to succeed as an independent company is not just about punching holes in the ground. It's about the strength of your relationship. Now, the relationship for us is you managing your stakeholders. Don't look at your stakeholders as just stakeholders. See them as your partners. Now, this involves the government, your regulators, your community where you operate especially, your banks or your financiers. There are different mix of products you can have for them to fund your asset. But what matters more than anything is, like John said, have a good governance structure that they can rely on and they can trust. Be open and transparent with them from the get-go. If you let them know what you want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they will walk along with you. If you have challenges, be open, transparent, and honest about it. They will walk along with you. So for us, that has been the key success to our own story so far, just being able to have that conversation.
I want to say.
No, sir, I forgot the question. I forgot the question. If someone's talking, what was it? Challenges? What is it?
No. So, let's say you're in a master class.
Yes.
And your story, I know you quite well, we talked about it. Your story is quite compelling.
Okay.
You practically started a company from the scratch.
Yes.
And you took it from there, went on to acquire Meren, acquire Imaginary Field, producing. And if anybody out there that wants to be the next Aonsi as well, looking at your story and your journey, what would you tell them to do? How would you tell them not to do it?
Okay, I'll tell them a few things. First of all, so John said something, stubbornness. You have to have a militant, almost suicidal stubbornness first.
Militant, almost suicidal stubbornness.
I'll add one more word to that, resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah.
I hope you're taking notes.
And why do I say that? Because I'll tell you. Because people come up here and talk about, I could tell you how 11 years, we have a stake in Meren, we're producing 5,000 barrels, we've drilled 2 wells, we'll be at 6,300 by end of the year, all true. But what I'll tell that person is, in between that, you will almost die before you get to that point, right?
Glad it's not dead. Glad it didn't die.
And this is how you survive. Learn from your mistakes and pivot from your mistakes. Simple example, the marginal field, Dawes Island that we're working on. I talked about how we drilled one well. We started drilling 19th of April, finished that well 40 days later. Started a second well, as you know, which will be done by November. So we'd have done 2 wells in the space of 4 months. Our first campaign, re-entry, we planned to take 2 months. It took us 14 months because when you're a startup, you can't raise financing. We went for an old, crappy, what Americans call a hoopty of a rig that was petering out at every point and nearly gave up. And we had to demobilize it, mobilize again. So our initial cost had a 40% overrun. Our projection for timelines had we planned 3 months. It took us 12 months. We were dealing with regulatory issues at that point, managing JV partners, which was a problem. But the other thing is also, honestly, when I say go it alone, I like what Edson has done. You have to take charge of your own destiny, like they said, because a JV partnership we had nearly killed us until we went back to the drawing board and had our own strategy made up by ourselves, envisioned and executed solely by ourselves. So our drilling of 2 wells, we had a strategy session, my team members are here, 5th of January, we had to start in our offices and said, we're going to do this, this, and this. Wrote to the NUPRC, because it's a 100% owned asset and sole risk, exactly what we wanted to do, we got approvals for, and did. We didn't have to go to any third parties to be arguing over, budgets and whatever it is. We went to our shareholders, and in one board meeting, got the shareholders' equity contributions, and then you also have to believe in your own vision, because guess what? None of these financiers will come through for you when you're starting.
Yeah.
There are a few people here. I'm on the panel with them on Wednesday. I went to every single, I used to work in Standard Banks, career in Citibank. I went to every banker. None of them were interested in funding. But as soon as we finished the first well, tested it, sent results with high quality crude, 38-degree API, 2,000 barrel flow rate. Guess what? Every one of them is now willing to fund. So you have to be able to prove your concept and believe in it until others, build it and they'll come.
Thank you. A key word there, never play cheap. Never play cheap. and you go for a scrappy rig because it's cheaper, you pay the price.
You would say that, Schlumberger.
I'm the moderator here. I work for you all. So,
For us, three keywords, ambitious, agile, and authentic. It's really important to be a company that can be trusted, transparent. That makes a tremendous difference, at least it has in our journey. Also, something that we didn't get a chance to talk about is the importance of the compliance side. So having the compliance in order helps the type of financing you can secure and also the type of partnerships that you can secure.
So just 30 seconds each, last questions, last round, and it will be pretty straightforward. Looking at the next 5 years, what are the most exciting opportunities for African independence, and how do you see your company positioning themselves in this competitive landscape? Let me start with you.
I think it's going to be a very exciting 5 years. I think, again, companies of our size, we are the ecosystem. We're there to consume assets that perhaps others are finding marginal to their size. And so I'm very excited about what I see coming in the next 5 years in terms of those opportunity sets for us. Our access to capital is good. All of us are good, stable, well-run companies. So I'm very much looking forward to the next 5 years. I think it's going to be a lot of growth.
In the next 5 years, what I see before you answer this next question, in the next 5 years, from these companies, I see the next Marathon, the next ConocoPhillips,
there you go,
the next Anadaco in the next 5 years. Quote me, I said so. Emeka.
Amen.
I agree as well. I think the future really looks promising for the African independence, especially with the exit of the IOCs, opening up major portfolios for the African independence to grow and transcend. So for us in Sapetro, we're in the process of consolidating deep water, but we're also looking at onshore and also shallow water opportunities. So we are looking to grow our production up to 50,000 barrels of oil per day within the next 5 years, and also our reserves by up to 600%.
Thank you. Adela?
We are very ambitious. So I'm just going to say that out of the gate. We see the next 5 years as years of growth, acquisition, and we're targeting 100,000 barrels of oil per day from where we are right now. And we're going to work towards it. We've done it before by buying. So we have organic growth, and then you have inorganic growth. We see the opportunities.
He just shared his company's vision from 30,000 to 100,000 barrels in the next 5 years.
Our next 5 years, I have a very clear plan for the next 5 years. We have a 2030 strategy. The first is to triple production. So our plan for this year was to triple production for this year, which we've done. We'll have triple production from 2,000 to 6,000 barrels. Then over the next 3 years, we will triple production again from 6,000 to 15,000 to 18,000 barrels in Nigeria. We've also found a niche for ourselves, the marginal field. There was an article in the Africa Report about the licenses that are all due for renewal, and about 20 whose fates are hanging in the balance because they haven't met the minimum work commitments, whereas we've taken a marginal field well beyond. And so we see opportunities for being the beneficiaries of other marginal fields that cannot be developed by the current owners. And in that niche space, we can control those fields 100% and just take production up ourselves. And so we'll take that, and from there we would then look to regional expansion. And in 5 years' time, having produced in Nigeria 15,000 barrels, like Edson and myself will go acquire something in Angola.
50,000 barrels. You don't only make deals.
I said 15.
15. Come on. You don't only make deals at Africa Energy Week. I mean, you make forecasts about your vision as well. He said 15, but I think that's not aggressive enough. We should be looking at 50.
So 50 when I go to Angola.
Now, next 5 years, clearly mature assets, Angola onshore, and as a company, our target is 80,000 barrels per day in the next 5 years.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the future is Africa. We have a role to play in securing our future. So when you talk about energy security, you talk about sustaining, you talk about industrialization. So these are 5 different companies that are our core powerhouse that are playing critical role towards attaining a future whereby we'll become self-sufficient. I see a day where you have the Sapetros and everyone here going out there, taking their journey outside Africa, the gospel of looking for oil and gas, taking it outside Africa, going to the Middle East, going to Europe. I'm sure that such a day will come. So thank you very much for listening to us. And I hope you're able to get some nuggets, some points on what it takes to become a successful African independence, the challenges, and in case you want more, just try and meet us by the speaker room. Each of them will be available to share more nuggets with you. Thank you.
Just remain seated for a second. Real quick. This is the end of launch stage. And please give them one more round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Richmond Osuji is my name.